Friday afternoon, Friday evening maybe. It's the Mead, Metal, and MMA podcast. We talk about three of our favorite factors in life. I'm Kevin. You might say, hey, what's Brandon not here? Well, actually, if you listen to last week's episode, we know it's because Brandon is out in Las Vegas, living the life of a heathen. We're brought in by the tunes of Black Sabbath off their original album, 1970. Yeah, well, and we can't play much. Somebody had asked me, he said, why don't you guys play a little bit more, let it lead in some more, because YouTube will shut us down. YouTube doesn't appreciate people borrowing other people's music, even for our, not so vile purposes here on our weekly little podcast. But nonetheless, I'm going to try to keep it a little bit short and sweet this week, because it is just me, after all, and probably the last thing you want to hear is just me talking to myself. Although, actually, that's kind of what I make a living out of doing half the time on my day job. But besides that, so what we do is come together and talk about our three favorite issues of the day: Mead, Metal, and MMA. Yeah, I know we had Brandon on the line a while ago. It's the sound quality is just not going to cut it. His internet connection's not great. He's actually getting into the T-Mobile Arena. They're in Las Vegas, and yeah, I mean, it would have been perfect. In an optimal world, we would have had him, getting through the ticket line, getting into the arena, heading in for the Ultimate Fighter finale. But it wasn't going to work, and frankly, even the phone quality was kind of shitty. So what we're just going to do is I'm going to go ahead and keep true to what we do around here, talk about our issues that we get into. Let's talk Mead first and foremost of all. And by the way, with no Brandon here to fill the gaps, my proclivities of a little bit of whiskey here and there, you might have to put up with that. All right, first off, the Runestone batch. Everybody's want to know about that. Here's some good news. Runestone, the batch obviously is done. We talked about that weeks ago. It's been in the bottle, raring to go. We should have our PV shrinks should be in by Monday, and we'll be putting those on. They will actually look really great against the label that I'm putting together right now. Artwork was supplied through our friend Ruben, having to do with the little banneret on it, and also having to do with the actual runestone, the text as well. He did all of it by hand, so we appreciate Ruben for all of his work on that, the artiste side of everything. But again, waiting for that. We've got to find somebody that's got a laser printer that we can borrow or take it to our local print shop, one of the two. And get our labels printed, because it has to be a laser printer, which that's going to be an upgrade that we're looking at. I know Brandon's already looking into it. I have a laser jet, and that's fine, but when your labels are specifically for laser printers, yeah, you're a little up against it. It basically goes on like a mop, and it comes right off. The laser printer actually puts it in there in a very, very different function, and that's why they are far superior and far more expensive than LaserJet printers. I think I bought my LaserJet at about $40 or something like that. A laser printer you're not getting in for under about $250. So that's really what we're waiting on. I know that a lot of our donors have kind of been sitting back and waiting and saying, "Hey, man, when are you going to get us this batch?" Well, just hold fast. We will have it together here soon. I'm hoping by the time that we have our next podcast, give it up a week from today, next Friday, I sincerely hope that we have our shit together and we're able to praise ourselves, pat ourselves on the back for finally having it all done and being ready to go and be able to get that out to you. The second batch we have underway is for our Green Man. We racked that right before Brandon went to Las Vegas. As a matter of fact, probably 4 hours before he hit the road. We racked it over to a 5-gallon glass carboy. At this moment, all it is just straight mead. There's nothing special about it right now. What we're going to do is let it sit for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then we're going to move it over into another fermenter. But we're going to add the green chili at that time, and a couple other secret amendments that'll end up bringing out a little bit more of the green chili flavor. We're going to do that, and intensify the honey flavor. So we're going to do that probably 2 or 3 weeks. So we're looking at probably right toward the end of July. And what we'll do then is let it sit for about 10 to 12 days, I think was what we found to be the sweet spot of last year's Green Man batch. And then we'll move it over to another carboy again and let it settle for one more week. And if it needs clarification, we'll do it then. And then we will promptly bottle it. That stuff will be ready to go about middle of August. So, and that's kind of what we really had it in design. We were wanting to make sure that August would be a special month of getting the Green Man out again, because there were a lot of you that just lost your damn minds over it last year, as well you should, in a very good way. So that's kind of the Mead update for this week. I don't think there's anything else out there. I don't really want to allude to too much. There's a special batch that we are considering right now. This would be a very special batch. We would probably start in the fall, and might be a good likelihood that we would probably see fall 2017. We'd probably have it ready winter 2018. If that gives you any kind of a little bit of a insight. It would be a very, very special batch. I mean, one of these we wouldn't really mess around with and try to do on a very regular basis. But let's just put it this way: we have some things in the works that would make it it would be a Grand Mead, because the Grand Mead, by clarification, by nomenclature, is anything that's been aged for 1 year. But it even incorporates the process through fermentation. We would actually go beyond that. We'd probably, if we're going to go through with this plan, we'd probably start at about September, October, and it would get through actually all the fermentation phases by December, and then we would do something very special with it at that point, and then do something even more special with bottling 1 year from then. So December 2018, I guess, as some would be looking at, but it's going to be a very, very special batch. All right. Well, that's like 7 minutes on me right there. I was trying to keep things kind of a little bit short on the side of it here. All right, let's move on to the next side of it. Metal. I don't have a whole bunch this time, but there are some interesting things that came out from Metal Insider. They put out the best albums of the year so far in the music business. Well, what should be noted is that just because it's what makes the criteria of what's the best album of the year? So far, I would have Pallbearer right there, first or second of the, one or two, top of the year. Well, here's the thing. That's not the way it actually works. What it actually works is where the money exchanges hands, and that means copies sold. And of the year, they're not talking 2017. They're talking over the last 12 calendar months. Number one on the list, then, is really, really no surprise. Metallica, Hardwired to Self-Destruct. Almost 500,000 copies sold, 487,000, which for a metal album is pretty damn impressive. Number two on the list is Linkin Park, One More Light, 130,000. So let's talk about that. Number one, at 487,000 sold. The second on the list, 130. So that's quite a drop-off. Now here's where it gets a little bit funky, because then you get into Metallica's self-titled album, Metallica, 117,000 at number 3. That's right. An old record came in at number 3 on metal sales. Number 4, Incubus, 8, coming in at 75,500. Here's where it gets crazy. Number 5, Metallica, and Justice for All. Yeah, that one. Metallica, Master of Puppets from back in the 80s. Those two coming in just over 71,000. Mastodon, which is actually a brand new record, Emperor of Sand, coming at 71,000 sold. Number 8, Metallica, Ride the Lightning, 63,000. Guns N' Roses' Greatest Hits at 58,000. And then for some reason, Nickelback makes a list at 10 with Feed the Machine at 54. So the takeaway I get here is good on you, Linkin Park, for actually coming in. That's one I've not checked out in any depth. I will have to do so. Linkin Park, One More Light. I'll check it out if you will. Incubus still coming in strong. Who knew in this day and age? The weird one, though, I mean, it has to do with all the older Metallica albums and Guns N' Roses, their greatest hits coming in. I mean, outside of Nickelback being at number 10, that might, I'll grant you this, that may be the most surprising particular part of the list. But who am I? All right, the other bit of metal news for this week. System of a Down. They were supposed to have a new record coming out in 2017. You remember? John Dolmayan, he's the drummer for that band, had said they were going to have a new record coming out in 2017. And people said, what? System of a Down? Okay. Looking forward to it. Well, over the weekend, their bassist, Shava Odajan, he had did a little Q&A on Instagram and pretty much immediately addressed the prospect of the new record, or not new record, as the case may be. His direct quote was, "I know I'm waiting for a new album too. It's not happening. I don't know. I don't know when it's going to be. Not right now." So, the bass player disagreeing with the drummer. For you musicians out there, you can tell how much disharmony that might be. So, so the drummer, John Dolmayan, he's stated a couple of times now that there are 15 new songs written, right? So songs are written, ready to go. But yeah, the bass player, Odajan, he's saying it's just not going to happen. So I don't know. We'll keep waiting. Maybe System of a Down will crank out a new record. Is it going to come out before the next Tool album? I don't know. Get a hold of your bookmaker in Vegas, maybe. All right. Let's get to the MMA portion here because we're already moving along. I was trying to keep this really, really short because here's the whole thing. Brandon's going to be doing the upload from Las Vegas out there over his phone. So I don't want to tax him too much on huge file size. Besides that, again, who wants to listen to me just rambling my damn brains out here on a variety of issues on a Friday? So let's move on now to the MMA portion of the podcast. Let's get to the thanks for kicking me out, Microsoft. Good. By the way, I do want to go on record saying that really technology this week has really, really kind of been an asshole. I don't want to mince words. I don't want people to mistake that I seem to think in some way, shape, or form that Windows 10 is the best and ultimate thing ever of all time. It argues with anything old that you want to bring up, any old software you might have, programs you might have liked once upon a time. No, that shit's done. Those are never coming back. So what the problem then is that, you're at the whimsy of what Microsoft will let you do, what they will let you take a look at. It's crazy. So I'm a little pissed off there. And also the fact is, let's not lie to ourselves. The fact of the matter is Microsoft does want a controlling interest on a lot of different things that are going on. And that's kind of an aggravation of me individually. And what are you going to do? All right, here's the problem. I had the UFC schedule brought up, and immediately Windows 10 wanted to update Skype, which I was going to try to bring Brandon in over Skype, and basically it completely hijacked that. So let's go ahead and fast forward. Okay, here we go. Fight card coming up for UFC 213, the big pay-per-view going on tomorrow in Las Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena. I'm not going to bore you with the undercard. The undercard is largely, unless you're really a huge fan of UFC, MMA rather, I should say, because some of these guys this might be their initial appearance. Let's talk about a couple of them. You got Douglas Silva de Andrade fighting Rob Font. Andrade is 24-1. You got Font, who's 13-2. Good bantamweight fight. That one's on the undercard. Who knows? Probably Andrade will probably. Well, then again, it's Vegas. A lot of Brazilians don't do well in Vegas, so maybe Font. I don't know. You got Jordan Maine. He's going to be fighting Bilal Muhammad. Bilal Muhammad is 11-2. Jordan Maine is 29-11, but he's been on a pretty good streak lately. That's a pick'em. You got Thiago Santos fighting Gerald Meerschaert. Who knows? 14-5 for Santos, probably that guy. Again, a Brazilian. Now, you got Chad Laprise. He's going to be fighting Brian Carmozzi. What's interesting about this welterweight fight is that Laprise, carrying a 12-2 record, actually one of the few Canadians that get it done time and time again. Now that there's no more Rory McDonald in the UFC, you kind of have to look at somebody's national treasure. Chad Laprise might be it. I realize that some of you were going to argue that. I want to say the variety of people that they have that we see only on Canadian cards out of the UFC. No, no, no. Laprise is actually a guy who's well traveled. He's got a 12-2 record. I like his chances against Carmosi. Then I believe that one actually, I think, is the main bout for the prelims. Then we move on to the main card for 213, and this is all pay-per-view. You're going to have Ronda Rousey's man, Travis Rousey, or I'm sorry, Travis Brown fighting Alexei Oleinik. Here's the thing: Oleinik should be fairly easy. The Ukrainian he's been put down before. A lot of strikers have found success. Travis Brown, if nothing else, is a very good striker. But let's not forget, we're talking Travis Brown. This is a guy who finds ways to lose these days. You remember here a couple, like 4 years ago, people were talking about how he was going to dominate the heavyweight division, and he's never done it. He's been to some real camps before. He was at Jackson Wink, didn't like the way they treated him. In other words, they make you actually earn it there. And then he promptly moved on and started training at Ronda Rousey's gym. Now they're going to get married. They're going to have kids. All this shit. More power to you. There's a line out of Game of Thrones that comes to mind on talking about the particular nation that's there. And they either know how to fight or fuck or fucking fight. And Travis Brown, Ronda Rousey, get with one or the other. Because, well, and let's go with one, because fighting's not your forte. All right, Anthony Pettis. Talk about a guy that's been struggling. This was, and I'm not even shitting you, the Wheaties box guy. The UFC had to produce a fighter, put him out onto a Wheaties box. So Post Cereals, or whatever the hell they're called now, GNC. We're going to put out a UFC-themed box. They picked Anthony Pettis. He was the 155. He's the lightweight champion at the time. And ever since then, this guy has been a roller coaster ride. Well, here's the good news for Anthony Pettis. He's fighting Jim Miller. Jim Miller looks really good once in a while, but my God, he generally, if it's somebody that has a skill set well beyond his, there's not usually an upset in the works for Jim. Jim looks great against guys that are evenly matched. Okay, well, let's not kid ourselves. He looks okay against guys he's evenly matched against. Guys that he's way better than, he tends to beat that competition, which is saying something. There's a lot of people in the UFC that do struggle when it comes to that. Let's move on up to the next one. Fabricio Verdum is fighting Alistair Overeem. Heavyweights again. So that's a couple of heavyweights on the main card. Well, here's the problem. Actually, 3 heavyweight battles on the main card, but the second one is Verdum and Overeem. Overeem, we've seen time and again, glass jaw. Now, the guy did make weight. Let's give him that. Came in at 265. But which Overeem are we going to get? Is he going to be the guy that can plant that one punch that puts Verdum on his ass? Maybe. People have done it to Verdum before. We've seen it happen. Or if this thing is going to go beyond the first round, I think everything benefits Fabricio Verdum in that case. All right, moving up to the next one on the card, Daniel Omanchik, I believe is the pronunciation, fighting Curtis Blades. Blades, I don't know much about. The guy's only got a 6-1 record professionally, but he looked like a beast the last time he came out. I would favor Curtis Blades. Here comes the really difficult when we get to the co-main. Yoel Romero is fighting Robert Whittaker. Now, in all respects, against almost everybody in the middleweight division, I would take Yoel Romero every time. Guy's 12-1, and frankly, every time he looks like he's getting in trouble, bam, here comes something big. Head kick, here comes something, a big right, here comes something that puts somebody on their ass, and he ends the fight immediately. The problem is he's fighting Robert Whittaker. Now, granted, Whittaker's got that 19-4 record, but this guy out of New Zealand, I think I've seen him in 4 fights now. Holy shit, he looks like a wrecking ball every time he comes out. Look, I mean, I still like Romero's chances. I do. But man, it would not surprise me if Whitaker gets the win here. I don't know what the Vegas line is. I didn't bring up that information, but Jesus, Whitaker is a dangerous man. Now, here's the thing. Michael Bisping's going to be sitting back hoping and praying that Whitaker gets the win right up until he realizes that's who he's going to have to fight next. Bisping's a lose-lose across the board, whether it is Romero or Whitaker. All right, then we get to the main event. That's Amanda Nunes fighting against Valentina Shevchenko. This one is actually going to be an interesting fight because of the fact that Nunes is just such a brutal striker in the first round and part of the second round. They fought before. Nunes got the win by a very questionable decision in some minds. Shevchenko, a lot of people thought she took that one. Now, the lady from Kyrgyzstan here, well, or at least that's the country she represents, Shevchenko is a skilled kickboxer. What's notable about her, she's got a jaw. She's got a chin. And Amanda Nunes is used to putting people down with just the volume alone, and eventually a few of them get in there and start cracking somebody like a fool. And again, that didn't work the first time, and it's not going to work the second time. So I think this one's going to come down to who can make the adjustments to beat the person that they fought the last time out. If Nunes is thinking, hey, I'm just going to grab another decision here, which, granted, let's face facts, she won't. She's going to come out competitive. She's going to do what she can do. She is the champ. My God, that's one that would not surprise me if the belt goes back to Eastern Europe, to Ukraine/Kyrgyzstan, where Shevchenko comes from. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. That's kind of it for the UFC 213 card. At least the fights are worth a damn. What we're going to do is next week we're going to be back with our normal podcast. Brandon and I. Oh, Brandon just took a sweet photo. He's in the arena. Okay. Too bad we couldn't get him on the podcast this week. He'll be back next week. He'll regale us with all the fine tales from T-Mobile Arena right there in Las Vegas, Sin City. So anyway, that's it for me this week, folks. Thanks for putting up with me about 20-something minutes. And we just wanted to make sure we still have the consistency of bringing something to you every week, and that's what we have there. Anyway, time for me to go down, sit down, enjoy a little bit of Jack Daniels, suck down a couple Budweisers. Yeah, I know, I'm going a little cheap this weekend. But nonetheless, though, for you savages, we will see you again next week. Yeah, my picks this week, I forgot. My picks would be Jack Daniels. Okay, pick number 2 on metal. Obviously, Black Sabbath this week. Go old school, would you? And pick number 3 is going to be Shevchenko by a weird little upset. Count on it. That's probably what we have. So we will catch up with you again next week when we reconvene for another edition of Mead, Metal, and MMA podcast. Have a fine fucking week. See you next week.